A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. We've probably all heard that. If you hook up a tow truck to a really heavy vehicle, then you need to take it 5 or 6 miles down the road, but there is one chain in the link that is weak. Ultimately, along the way, that chain is going to come apart, and that truck that you've been towing that weighs 3 or 4 tons is going to get away from you and wreak a lot of havoc, do damage to property, and possibly even hurt or, God help us all, kill somebody. You have to admit that the chain that has got a weak link in it may or may not be the best tool to use to try to move that truck along. That is equally true in relationships, in families, in a schoolroom situation where you have a group project but you have a weak link, within a corporation when you have someone or a group of someones who aren't really pulling their own weight or doing all of the work that they should be doing. All of these things cause hardship and difficulty and sometimes even damage and pain to others because of the circumstances of what that is to be the weakest link. There was a television show a while back called The Weakest Link. I always got a kick out of it, and I didn't really always comprehend why they called it that by that particular title, but it did help you see that people had different strengths in different areas, pardon me, and hence they could answer a question within a specific area of interest or knowledge. Our kids need to be able to self assess to the extent that they know where their own weakest links are. This is Paint a Beautiful Picture, episode number 202. My challenge question for you today is, do you know your weaknesses? Are you willing to acknowledge them to yourself? Because if you can't do that, you can't acknowledge them to anyone else. If you know them, are you willing to acknowledge them to someone else? Your partner, maybe even your kids, your business partner, someone whom you're assigned to a project with. Can you really go, I'm just lousy at that. That's not an area that you need to assign to me because I have no strength in that particular area. It isn't a crime to be weak, but it may be a really big problem not to admit it. Okay? So you need to be able to look at your own self and say, this is probably my weakest area. Doesn't mean you have to stay weak in that area. You might be able to study or do certain things that will help you compensate for that. So for example, I'm pretty lousy at math, or I certainly was when I was a kid. I was really not good at it. I could read when I was 3 and a half. I couldn't tell time until I was in 5th grade, way behind everybody else. That just, not only my dyslexia confused me, but that whole process of 60 minutes really threw me for a loop. I just could not make sense out of that. And probably because it was a mathematical ideation on top of everything else. Yeah. I can tell you even to this day, though I can pretty quickly do a whole lot of math in my mind, still I would tell you that math is one of my weaker areas. Certainly in terms of physical strength. When I was younger, I used to work 80, 90 hours a week. Literally. Oh my word. I was a house on fire. And I am not that person anymore. I've had a lot of health things that happened to me, including dengue fever when I was in West Africa. That was very debilitating to my health. I'm not nearly as strong as I once was. I also have an autoimmune disorder, which can affect my frequency or even severity of getting sick. So I have to be careful about where I am and what I do and who I'm with so that I'm protecting my own physical body because of the weakness of my immune system. I have weaknesses, and I certainly know what they are. Another one of my weaknesses is that I still don't have much tolerance for people who are purposefully stupid. And what I mean by that is if you've told them and instructed them and given them opportunity upon opportunity upon opportunity to do something, and they adamantly refuse to do it to their own harm or to the harm of others around them, I really don't have any patience for that kind of stupidity. I just don't. I'm not going to yell and cuss and act nasty, but I don't want to be by people like that. I'm not willing to counsel people like that because you want to keep on doing that. I respect your right to do that, but I'm not going to expend any energy whatsoever to try to stop you. Just not going to do it. I know some of my own weaker areas. You need to know your own. Whether that is, oh my goodness, I have a bad temper. I have a hard time following through. I have no patience. I'm pretty judgmental and critical. I don't have any grace whatsoever. I'm not able to forgive easily, and I can't even forgive myself hardly. I'm a relentless worrier. I'm terrible with money. I get 2 cents in my pocket, they're burning a hole in there till I spent it somewhere. I cannot save money to save my life. I'm not very responsible with money. I'll just go buy frivolous, stupid, ridiculous stuff that I don't even need. Just, you get the idea. Wherever your weaknesses are, you need to acknowledge them, especially to yourself, so you don't get yourself in a mess. Then you need to say, so which one of these are the most detrimental to me, so I can get myself to work on them and work on one thing at a time. Seriously, that's plenty. And work on that. Listen to me, go to counseling, talk to someone else who's a friend. Look at someone who is good at what you are not good at and ask them, what do they do? How do they manage that? They may not know how to break it down and explain it to you, but at least associate with them and get an idea of what they're doing and how they do things differently than you. Work on your weaknesses after you've acknowledged them to yourself. And certainly if it's going to be in a group setting, including within your family unit, because if there is you and your mate and a child or two, that's a group, no matter how else you put it. Acknowledge where your weaknesses are and get some help to compensate for those weaknesses. I always say, if two people come together and they are just the same, they have just the same strengths and just the same weaknesses, they're no better off for being together. I suppose that's why opposites often attract. So if you have someone who's really adept at one thing and this person is really great at something entirely different, that's awesome, because you're going to be able to compensate for each other and help each other out and hold each other up. So you need to look at where those weaknesses are, work on compensating for them or learning new skills so that you aren't as weak in that area. And then realize that you are a human. And human beings, and I mean until the day you die, have faults and problems. It's honestly the truth. I always say, you become more and more and more of who and what you are as you age. If you are a patient person, you tend to become more and more and more patient. If you are a frequently angry, impatient person, you tend to become more and more and more angry and more readily impatient. I used to know someone and they said, when I'm old, I'm going to be, and they described this person who was nothing like what they were like. And I remember I used to think, so how are you going to manage that? Because if you aren't taking active steps to become what you're describing, there's no way you're going to be that. You're going to be who you are, only amplified when you get old. Listen to me. If you are 19 or 30 or even 40, you better hear these words loud and clear. If you do not like who you are and how you are, you better get a hold of it and change that. Because you're going to not be comfortable in your own skin at 65 or 70. And you'll have a wretched old age. And I know what I'm talking about because I've seen so many older people who were completely miserable, questioning the value of their life at that moment or their life throughout their lifetime and the things they did and did not do because they didn't get a hold of it when they were younger. So I'm telling you, you've got to learn to look at your weaknesses and acknowledge them, start to work on them, find a way to compensate for them, develop consequent strengths. You may not throw the weakness out, but it's the truth. If you feed one dog, that dog gets stronger. Starve the other one. If you feed this dog, this gets stronger. Starve the other one. You get to make decisions every day about how you live. My appeal to you is to start to deal with your weaknesses and your inadequacies in a very intentional, purposeful way. Love yourself enough to do that. Love the people around you enough to do that. And handle your weaknesses in a different way by acknowledging responsibility for what you did or did not do, for the ways that you have or have not lived and succeeded, and aim to get a hold of those things in order that you might have a richer, better, more self confident life. And then you can pass that on to your children. I hope that this episode has been helpful to you or thought provoking for you. My challenge question for you today is, where is my greatest weakness? What am I doing about it? Okay? So really think about this. And again, leave yourself some room in your notebook. This might be one that you come back to as certain things happen and you go, oh, yeah, I guess I haven't thought about that in a while, but yeah, I have a real challenge with this. And so then later you might need a little space to write that down, as well as what is your intention to do something about that. I hope you have a great day. In spite of your weaknesses, life is beautiful. There are a lot of good things in it. So look for those great things today, even those good things inside of yourself. I'll see you soon. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.